Check this out, listeners. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me explain how. First of all, it's free. And secondly, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast also with no minimum listenership. Lastly, it's everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to Black History 365 to Throwdown, a series where I explain, educate and explore historical events, unsung Black figures in world history, and recount the struggles and triumphs of Black people worldwide. I'm your host, Yusuf Ursi, and in this episode, I'll be presenting the story of the 1963 Birmingham Church Bombing that killed 4 little girls. It's September 15, 1963, and a bomb exploded during Sunday morning services at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 4 young girls. Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair. The 16th Street Baptist Church served as a meeting place for civil rights leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., who once dubbed Birmingham as a symbol of hardcore resistance to integration. Alabama's Governor George Wallace made racial segregation one of the central goals of his administration, and this created one of the most violent and lawless chapters of the KKK in Alabama. Once this was established, the reign of terrorist attacks began, and one of their targets was the church. When the bombing occurred, it was the third in Birmingham in 11 days after a federal order came to integrate Alabama's school systems. 15 sticks of dynamite were planted in the church's basement underneath what would turn out to be the girls' bathroom. At 10:19 a.m., the bomb detonated, killing Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Addie Mae Collins, all who were 14 years old, and 11-year-old Denise McNair. Immediately after the blast, the church members rushed out of the church, discombobulated, in pain, and bloodied. Covered in debris and broken stained glass surrounding them, they began helping survivors through the rubble. More than 20 other members of the congregation were injured in the blast. In the aftermath, irate Black protesters assembled at the crime scene. George Wallace sent hundreds of police and state troopers to the area to break up the crowd. 2 young Black men were killed that night, one by police and another by racist thugs. Meanwhile, public outrage over the bombing continued to grow, drawing international attention to Birmingham. At the funeral service for 3 of the girls, one of the girls' family preferred a private service that was separate from the other girls' families that were mourning their losses. Martin Luther King Jr. would go on to address more than 8,000 mourners that morning. A well-known Klan member, Robert Edward Chambliss, was charged with murder and with buying 122 sticks of dynamite. On October 1963, Chambliss was cleared of the murder charge and received a 6-month jail sentence and a $100 fine for the dynamite. During the FBI investigation, 3 of the men, Bobby Frank, Cherry, Herman Cash, and Thomas E. Blanton Jr., were arrested for having helped Chambliss commit the crime. Subsequently, it was later revealed that FBI Chairman J. Edgar Hoover blocked their prosecution and shut down the investigation without filing charges in 1968. Justice for the murders they started to become stagnant and bleak after the case was closed. But once General Bill Baxley reopened the case, it resulted in the conviction of Chambliss in 1977, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Efforts to prosecute the other 3 men believed responsible for the bombing continued for decades. Even though Cash died in 1994, Cherry and Blanton were arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder in 2000. Blanton was sentenced to life in prison. On the other hand, Cherry's trial was delayed after judges ruled he was mentally incompetent to stand trial. However, this decision was later reversed, and on May 22, 2002, he was convicted and sentenced to life, bringing a long-awaited victory to the friends and families of the 4 young victims. And this concludes this episode. For more information on this podcast, you can check out my blog site at realfreeflowingwords.blog and click on the tab Black History 365 for my written blog posts on the previous episodes I recorded. The show is made possible by Anchor, which is providing a great and easy to use service for new and seasoned podcasters. If you enjoyed listening to this show, then make sure to subscribe on Spotify so you can stay up to date with my future episodes. You can even take it a step further from subscribing by becoming a supporter of the show. You can donate any amount you feel comfortable if you feel inclined to, so I can level up this podcast and help sustain future episodes. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday and Friday for new episodes. On the next episode, I'll be presenting the story behind Nat Turner's rebellion. Remember that Black history should be learned about and celebrated every day and not just in 28 days. So stay educated and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Yusuf Ursi, and until next time, peace.